The subject of my life is yoga, and it will be yoga till the end of my life.
Before, how I don't practice yoga, I really don't understand what is life, what is love.
All I can say is that yoga has completely changed my life.
So yoga is my way of life. Yoga is my path to moksha.
If we don't rule our own minds, then the external world rules over us.
Yoga is so valuable that it should be practiced universally by every human being.
There is a wave sweeping the world today. It is yoga. Whether it is in the fields of physical fitness, medicine, psychology, sociology, or philosophy, they are all benefiting immensely from yoga. It is estimated that in the USA alone, over 30 million people, or 13% of the entire population, have practiced the ancient Indian science of yoga. Yoga is practiced regularly today in 78 countries around the world. Yoga is changing the way that we look at ourselves and our lives in the world. What is yoga? A few thousand years ago, we are not sure exactly when, intellectuals in India realized that our material aims and achievements do not really bring true happiness. They began to map the world inside us, to explore it and find ways of creating true and lasting joy. A science of life was created, which examined us as we really are. Our thoughts, our emotions, our joys, our sorrows, our frustrations, our bodies in good health and in bad, were all subjected to deep and precise study. Generations of scholars who were trained in a great tradition of logic and epistemology made this study on an epic scale. It is the science of the mind, of life, and of the inner world which is expressed in yoga. The aim of yoga is to create a deep harmony within us, to help us to realize our oneness with all that there is. It is believed that our true state is that of sukha, or eternal bliss.
I realized we have separated in modern times science and spirituality. They were not separate in ancient times. Our rishis were not just spiritual giants, they were great scientists. They were dwelling into the universal nature of the humankind. They were understanding the deep interconnections. We easily search outside. We scientists like to do experiments on somebody else. Experience with oneself, going in, understanding one's body, understanding one's emotions, understanding one's mind, understanding the higher aspects of one's mind, understanding one's own spirit, the Atma. Moving from the Jivatma to the Paramatma. This was a very step-by-step, analytical, methodical search. It was not just somebody sitting, meditating, or something came. No, this was methodical, analytical. And this is why in yoga we say Vairagya is key. Vairagya is objectivity. Objectivity towards your own subjective experiences. What is the experience I am having? Is it true or not? What is the experience I am having? Is it valid or not?
Representations of yogic postures are to be seen from even 5,000 years ago in the Indian subcontinent. Ancient Indian philosophy was crystallized by the 8th or 9th centuries BCE in the sublime teachings of the Upanishads. Here we see the philosophic basis of yoga clearly spelt out. The Katha Upanishad says, "He whose senses are uncontrolled, who is not tranquil, whose mind is not at rest, he can never attain the eternal truth, even through knowledge." It says, when the 5 sense organs of perception become still, together with the mind, that is called the highest state. All the spiritual faiths which were subsequently born in India remained firmly rooted in yoga. Yoga literally means to join oneself to the harmony which pervades all that there is. In order to join ourselves to the divinity within us, we need to be freed from the noise and distractions of the ever-changing and illusory world around us. We need to still the mind and unite ourselves with our original state of complete consciousness. We have to separate ourselves from that which scatters the physical, mental, and intellectual resources. The constantly fluctuating perceptions of the material world need to be stilled. The focus has to be brought to that which really matters, that which is within.
In Western psychology, mind is not a matter. It is an animating, somewhat like an animating principle, it has been understood. And it is also equated to consciousness. Mind and consciousness is taken as together as one principle. Whereas in Indian psychology or in yoga, which is basically in Indian psychology, mind is a matter, a substance, a dravya. Dravya means a substance which you can see, which you can even experience, which you can control, regulate, and which doesn't have a consciousness of its own. This is the major difference which provides an immense opportunity for us to work on the mind and influence it, impact it, refine it, and use it to our own purpose in a more healthy, harmonious way.
There are 4 streams of yoga which reach us through ancient tradition. It is believed that the final knowledge and unity can be reached through karma yoga or perfect action in life. It can also be achieved through the losing, the surrender of oneself through adoration of the divine. That is Bhakti Yoga. The state of yoga can also be reached through the path of knowledge or jnana. Finally, it can be achieved through Raja Yoga or the royal path, which includes the asanas, which we are all familiar with today.
Japanese people, they, picked up, yoga in ancient time. Same time, they, picked up from karma yoga. Karma yoga is, came from seva. Do you know the word of the seva? It's same meaning in Japan. Take care is seva in Hindi and Sanskrit, but if you said seva in Japan, it's same meaning. Seva is now Japanese language.
In the West, there is the emphasis on yoga as asana, and we don't realize that the most common yoga practiced in India and historically all over the world is the bhakti yoga, or the yoga of devotion. That is not just superficially emulating some form of the deity or some pious attitude. It is the ability to surrender at the level of the heart to the reality, the divine presence.
Krishnamacharya was an out and out a bhakta. In fact, the correct word for that is he was a Bhagavata. Bhagavata is one who has totally submitted himself or herself to the God. Total submission. There is no other relationship. Total submission. And he was a par excellence devotee, and that he did it and practiced till the last breath.
Ancient knowledge of Raja Yoga was put down systematically as the Yoga Sutra by a great sage called Patanjali, most likely in the 4th century CE. Patanjali is revered till today as a reincarnation of the serpent Ananta, who is associated with the deity Vishnu. Patanjali prescribed a system called Ashtanga, or the 8-limbed path. The first 5 limbs are steps of discipline, the doing part of it. The next 3 limbs are internal. They are the outcome of practicing the earlier 5. Yama and Niyama are the first 2 limbs of Ashtanga Yoga. Yama are rules of conduct with the world around us. Niyama refers to ethical discipline within ourselves.
Cannot be emotional, yes?
Hold the breath, focus between your eyes.
The next limb of Ashtanga Yoga is pranayama. The purpose of asana is to prepare the body for the thoughtful extension of breath, pranayama, so that prana, or the life energy, can circulate to all parts of the body. Next comes pratyahar, which means the withdrawal of the senses, freedom from their constant disturbance, taking us from the outer world to that which is within. The next limb of Ashtanga is dharana, or focused concentration. Then comes dhyan, or meditation, and finally samadhi, when one has transcended the limitations of the body and intellect to be in a true state of yoga.
Meditation, put simply, is the ability to observe, to witness, to be aware, to accept things as they are, to dwell in the presence that embraces the past, present, and future at the same time, and allowing ourselves to return to our original nature, which is a state of pure consciousness beyond the body and mind.
For me, it means everything, from childhood to death, how life moves. So yoga guides me to move. So it's a friend for me, it's a guide, and it is a philosophy. I am practicing since 80 years. Patanjali does not say asana is good for health. He only says it brings the dual mind to a single mind. And that is the philosophy of the asanas. Self is just awareness. It has no form. Purusha is nirakara. So this Purusha, when it takes into a form, that is ahankara. So the formless becomes formful, and that form plays game, and that is why the methodology of making that form mind to go back to formlessness is the field of yoga. This is what I say, it takes a long time, because we are caught up very fast with the sensual mind. And that is why Patanjali in the second chapter says that the individual mind behaves as if it is the soul, which causes the problems. Therefore, the sadhana begins how to bring that mind, which considers itself as the root of everything, how it is not a root, but it is subordinate to something else. So mind personifies itself as the self. And that's why yoga is a means to conquer this personification of the mind, to make it impersonal.
Yoga has been found by leading doctors and scientists around the world to be extremely beneficial for all people. Yoga is perhaps the most profound and deep study of the human mind ever conducted.
Modern science doesn't take things easily. It doesn't take things for granted, particularly ancient traditions. We know from the West that what Aristotle wrote has largely turned out to be waffle and rubbish. He was very intelligent, but Aristotle's physics and his metaphysics are now totally questioned and shown to be wrong. And there's a tendency in the West to assume that any piece of ancient knowledge is going to turn out to be wrong. But in the case of yoga, 30, 40 years of research has shown that it's actually turned out to be right.
We standardized some yoga modules for some common conditions that we have been seeing in this hospital: schizophrenia, depression, anxiety disorders, patients with memory complaints in the elderly. So in addition to their clinical outcome, we also wanted to measure, would yoga produce any other measurable biological effects? The brain repairs itself, and it needs a chemical for that called as the brain derived neurotropic factor. Yoga did increase the levels of brain derived neurotropic factor in the blood. And interestingly, the degree to which the depression got better was directly related to the degree to which the brain derived neurotropic factor levels increased. So patients with depression can be effectively treated, and in those people who are receiving antidepressant drugs, if they choose to take yoga as an addition, it could still be added. And why does yoga produce benefits in schizophrenia? We are investigating that. At this point of time, we have some lead. There is a hormone called as oxytocin, also called as a cuddling hormone. It is known to make people more sensitive about emotions, emotion perception, and regulation of the emotion. And yoga practice after 1 month substantially increased the oxytocin levels in the blood of patients with schizophrenia.
I am an assistant professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. My PhD is in the field of neuroscience, and since the year 2001, I've been conducting research on yoga full-time. Most people are pretty much dissociated from their bodies and their minds. And so as a consequence of this increased mind-body awareness, they start to gravitate towards positive health behaviors, towards things that make them feel better. They'll stop smoking because smoking no longer feels good to them. They'll stop drinking alcohol because alcohol doesn't feel good. It's numbing, it's a stimulant.
I'm professor of internal medicine at the University of Duisburg-Essen, and I'm head of the chair for complementary and integrative medicine.